Admiral Kang Tae-min stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable and watched the celebration fireworks explode across the dark space around him. 3 years had passed since the end of the Great War against the Blight Empire, and today marked the final victory ceremony. Ships from 12 different alien species floated in perfect formation around the human flagship. Each vessel bore the symbols of the Hegemony Coalition, and humanity working together as one force. The war had been brutal and long. When the Blight Empire first attacked the outer colonies 5 years ago, everyone thought the galaxy was doomed. The Blight moved like a disease across star systems, eating everything in their path and turning whole planets into dead rocks. The Coalition species had fought alone for decades before humanity joined the fight, and they were losing badly. Dr. Park So-young walked onto the bridge carrying a datapad filled with reports from the recent Coalition Science Council meeting. She had just finished presenting her latest research on quantum tunneling technology to representatives from all 12 Coalition species. The aliens had been amazed by how quickly humans learned to understand and improve their science. What took other species centuries to develop, humans mastered in months. The victory against the Blight had come because of human creativity and determination. When traditional Coalition tactics failed, human commanders like Captain Lee Dong-ho suggested new approaches that seemed crazy but worked perfectly. Human soldiers fought with a fierce energy that inspired their alien allies. Human engineers like Kim Hae-jin found ways to combine different alien technologies in ways no one had thought possible before. Tae-min remembered the final battle above the Blight homeworld. Coalition forces had been stuck in a stalemate for months, unable to break through the enemy defenses. Then, Commander Yoon Jae-sung proposed using human infiltration techniques combined with Coalition bioweapons to strike at the Blight command centers from within. The plan worked, and the Blight Empire collapsed in just 3 days. Now the galaxy was celebrating, and humanity was being praised as the saviors of civilization. Ambassador Threndok of the Coalition had given a speech calling humans the greatest allies any species could ask for. He spoke of eternal friendship and cooperation between all the races working together to build a better future. So-young handed Tae-min the datapad and pointed to some concerning information she had discovered in the Coalition databases. During her research work, she had been given access to historical records and scientific data from all Coalition species. What she found disturbed her greatly. The Coalition had a pattern of working with younger species during times of war, then abandoning them once the threat was over. The records showed 7 different times in the past 1,000 years when the Coalition had recruited primitive species to help fight their wars. Each time they promised friendship and partnership. Each time after victory was achieved, the recruited species simply disappeared from the records. No explanation was given for what happened to them. Tae-min studied the data with growing unease. The pattern was always the same. A great threat would emerge that challenged Coalition power. They would find a younger aggressive species and help them develop technology and military skills. The young species would fight with great courage and help win the war. Then they would vanish from history completely. The bridge communications officer suddenly received an urgent message from Coalition Command. All human ships were ordered to participate in a joint training exercise in the Kepler system. The exercise would test new cooperative tactics developed during the war. All major human fleet units were required to attend, including the orbital defense platforms around Earth. Tae-min felt suspicious about the timing, but orders were orders. The Coalition had been their allies throughout the war, and there was no reason to doubt them now. He gave commands to prepare the fleet for departure to the exercise area. Hundreds of human ships began moving toward the designated coordinates. Captain Lee Dong-ho was commanding an escort group of 12 destroyer-class ships when the training exercise began. Coalition vessels surrounded the human formations in what was supposed to be a defensive pattern. The exercise scenario involved protecting a convoy from simulated Blight raiders. Everything seemed normal at first. Then, without any warning, the Coalition ships opened fire on the human vessels. Dong-ho watched in shock as energy beams and missiles slammed into his ships. The attack was coordinated and devastating. Within minutes, half of his escort group was destroyed or badly damaged. Emergency communications flooded in from human ships across the exercise area, all reporting the same thing. The Coalition was attacking them. Tae-min received the emergency reports on his bridge just as Coalition ships near the Indomitable began powering up their weapons. He immediately ordered all human ships to break formation and defend themselves, but it was too late. The trap had been perfectly planned and executed. Human ships were scattered and outnumbered by their former allies. The attack spread beyond the exercise area. Reports came in from Earth and the colonies that coalition forces everywhere had turned on their human partners. Orbital defense stations were being destroyed. Ground bases were under assault. The betrayal was complete and total across all of human space. Ambassador Threndock appeared on all communication channels broadcasting a message to the galaxy. He claimed that coalition intelligence had discovered evidence that humanity was secretly developing weapons of mass destruction. According to his statement, humans had been planning to use their new technologies to conquer and enslave all coalition species. The attack was described as a necessary defensive action to protect galactic civilization. The evidence presented looked convincing to outside observers. Documents showed human research into biological weapons and plans for rapid military expansion. Technical specifications for planet-killing devices bore human signatures. Communications between human commanders discussed strategies for defeating coalition forces. All of it was fake, but expertly crafted to appear real. Tay Min managed to extract the Indomitable from the battle zone, but most of the human fleet was lost. Captain Dong Ho escaped with only 3 of his 12 ships. Across human space, the story was the same. Colonies burned and military installations exploded. In one coordinated strike, humanity lost 70% of its space fleet and half of its colonies. The survivors began gathering at hidden locations away from coalition patrols. Tay Min established a temporary command center in an asteroid field where rescue ships brought in refugees from the destroyed colonies. The sight of wounded civilians and burned-out ship hulks filled everyone with rage and determination for revenge. So Young worked frantically to analyze captured coalition data cores from the battle. What she discovered made the betrayal even worse. The planning for this attack had begun 3 years earlier, right after the first major human victory against the Blight. Internal coalition communications showed that human military effectiveness had terrified the alien leaders. They had decided that humanity must be eliminated before humans became too powerful to control. Every friendly gesture and celebration had been a lie. While humans celebrated their alliance and friendship, the coalition was planning their destruction. The evidence of human weapons development had been fabricated months in advance. The betrayal had been inevitable from the moment humans proved they could fight as equals. As rescue operations continued and survivors shared their stories, one thing became clear. The coalition had made a terrible mistake. They had expected to destroy human civilization completely, but instead they had created something much more dangerous. They had turned humanity into an enemy that understood their technology, their weaknesses, and their true nature. Tay Min gathered his surviving commanders and made a declaration that would change the course of galactic history. Humanity would not simply fight for survival or seek revenge for the betrayal. They would take everything the coalition had built over thousands of years and make it their own. The aliens had created the perfect enemy when they betrayed the species that had saved them. 6 months had passed since the betrayal, and humanity was learning to fight a very different kind of war. Admiral Kang Tay Min had moved his command center 3 times to avoid coalition patrol fleets. The asteroid base was hidden deep in a field of broken rocks where sensor readings were confused by metal deposits and radiation. Salvaged equipment and jury-rigged systems kept the human resistance alive, but barely. The coalition believed they had broken human power completely. Their broadcasts to the galaxy claimed that the last human terrorists were being hunted down and would soon be eliminated. Most other species accepted this story and continued their normal trade and diplomacy with coalition worlds. No one wanted to anger the victorious alliance by asking too many questions about what really happened. Commander Yoon Jae-sung had become the master of moving unseen through coalition space. His infiltration teams used captured alien clothing and identity, documents to blend in with civilian populations. What they discovered during these dangerous missions revealed the true nature of their enemy. The coalition was not the equal partnership it claimed to be. The 12 coalition species existed in a rigid hierarchy based on age and technological development. The elder races like the Vorthak and Zephyrian held all real power, while younger species served as workers, soldiers, and administrators. Each species knew exactly where they ranked in the system, and challenging that order meant destruction. Humans had threatened this ancient structure simply by being too effective in war. Coalition leaders had watched human military innovations with growing terror. If humans continued to advance, they would quickly become strong enough to demand equal status or even leadership. The hierarchy could not allow such a disruption to exist. Engineer Kim Hye-jin worked in converted cargo holds that served as emergency laboratories. Her job was to understand and copy Coalition technology from wreckage and captured equipment. The work was dangerous because most alien devices had security systems designed to destroy themselves if tampered with incorrectly. Her breakthrough came when she realized that Coalition technology relied heavily on biological components rather than pure mechanical systems. Their ships, computers, weapons, and even communication devices used living tissue integrated with synthetic materials. This biotech approach made their equipment incredibly efficient, but also created unexpected vulnerabilities. Dr. Park So-young spent her time analyzing genetic samples from different Coalition species and studying their historical records. Her medical background from treating human soldiers during the war had taught her how biological systems worked. Now she was learning how alien biology functioned and how it connected to their technology. The Coalition databases revealed a disturbing pattern that went back over 1,000 years. 7 times before they had recruited younger species to help fight major wars. The recruited species were always described as brave allies who fought with great skill and determination. Then, after victory was achieved, these species simply vanished from all records. So-young found references to the Kalar, who helped fight against the Machine Rebellion 800 years ago. The Deltans had been Coalition allies during the Void War 600 years later. The Nexari were recruited to fight the Crystal Plague just 3 centuries ago. All of them disappeared after their wars ended with no explanation given. Each recruited species had shown the same characteristics that worried Coalition leaders about humanity. They adapted quickly to new technology. They fought with creativity and determination. They developed new military tactics that impressed their alien allies. Then they became too dangerous to allow survival. Captain Lee Dong-ho led small strike forces against Coalition supply convoys and isolated outposts. These raids served multiple purposes beyond simple destruction. Every attack was carefully planned to capture specific types of equipment and information. Human forces were not just fighting for survival, but learning everything they could about their enemies. The raids revealed important weaknesses in Coalition military doctrine. Their forces were well trained and disciplined, but they followed rigid procedures that did not adapt well to unexpected situations. Human unpredictability confused Coalition commanders, who expected battles to follow established patterns. Dong-ho discovered that Coalition soldiers from different species did not work together as smoothly as their propaganda claimed. The hierarchy created resentment and mistrust between species. Lower-ranked soldiers followed orders from higher-ranked species, but without enthusiasm or initiative. Taimin studied all the intelligence gathered by his teams and began to see the shape of a larger strategy. The Coalition was powerful, but their power came from controlling established systems rather than innovative thinking. They ruled through fear and tradition rather than inspiring loyalty or cooperation. The admiral called a meeting of his senior staff in the Hidden Command Center. Hye-jin reported her progress in understanding biotechnology systems. So-young shared her discoveries about Coalition history and biology. Jae-sung described the political weaknesses he had observed. Dong-ho explained the military vulnerabilities his raids had revealed. Together they began planning something much more ambitious than simple guerrilla warfare. The Coalition expected human survivors to eventually be worn down and destroyed through constant pressure. Instead, humanity would use this time to become stronger than they had ever been during the official alliance. The key insight came from combining all their discoveries. Coalition biotechnology was incredibly advanced, but also completely dependent on biological components that humans could potentially control or corrupt. Their rigid hierarchy created predictable behavior patterns that could be exploited. Their guilt over previous betrayals made them paranoid about loyalty among their own species. Hye-jin proposed developing methods to interfere with Coalition biotechnology using human understanding of genetics and medicine. If they could find ways to disrupt the biological components in alien systems, they could turn Coalition advantages into weaknesses. Jae-sung suggested infiltration operations that would go beyond simple spying. Human agents could work to increase tensions between coalition species by exploiting existing resentments. The hierarchy that kept them united could become the weapon that tore them apart. So-young recommended studying the biology of coalition species to find ways to target their technology specifically. Each species had evolved differently and used different biological systems in their equipment. Understanding these differences could allow humans to develop species-specific countermeasures. Dong-ho wanted to expand military operations from raids to systematic capture of coalition facilities. Instead of destroying enemy installations, human forces would take them intact and convert them for human use. This would provide both resources and opportunities to study coalition systems in detail. Taemin listened to all these proposals and made a decision that would change everything. They would not simply survive the coalition betrayal or even defeat their enemies in battle. They would systematically acquire every advantage the coalition possessed, while building new capabilities the aliens could never match. The plan required patience and careful preparation, but the foundation was already in place. Human adaptability had allowed them to learn coalition technology during the war. Human creativity had developed new tactics that surprised alien commanders. Human determination had sustained them through the devastating betrayal. Now those same qualities would be used to accomplish something unprecedented in galactic history. Humanity would not just recover from the coalition attack, but emerge from it as the dominant power in known space. The aliens had created their own replacement. When they chose betrayal over honor, work began immediately on multiple fronts. Hidden laboratories started developing biotechnological countermeasures. Infiltration teams prepared for long-term undercover missions. Military units trained for capture operations rather than simple destruction. Intelligence services studied every aspect of coalition society and technology. The coalition believed they had eliminated the human threat, but they had only driven it underground where it could grow stronger without observation. The next phase of the war would be fought with weapons and tactics the aliens had never imagined possible. They had taught humanity that trust was weakness, but they were about to learn that humans could become the strongest force in the galaxy. 1 year after the betrayal, the coalition leadership was beginning to understand they had made a terrible mistake. What should have been simple cleanup operations against scattered human survivors had turned into a nightmare of disappearing fleets and compromised facilities. Admiral Kang Tae-min sat in his new command center built inside a captured coalition station and studied reports from across the galaxy. Commander Yoon Jae-sung had achieved something the coalition thought impossible. Human agents now operated throughout their space using advanced disguise technology developed by Dr. Park So-young. The biological masking systems allowed humans to appear as any coalition species for extended periods. More importantly, they could access coalition computer networks and communication systems without detection. The infiltration was not limited to simple spying. Human agents had been carefully placed in key positions throughout the coalition hierarchy. They worked as administrators, technicians, and even military officers. Every day, they gathered intelligence, manipulated information systems, and influenced decision-making processes. The coalition was being controlled by the very people they thought they had eliminated. Engineer Kim Hye-jin had achieved her first major breakthrough in bio-digital warfare. By combining human understanding of genetics with captured coalition biotechnology, she had developed methods to target the biological components in all coalition systems. Ships, weapons, communication networks, and even life support systems became vulnerable to human cyber-biological attacks. The first major test came when Captain Lee Dong-ho led an assault on the coalition fortress world of Nexus Prime. Instead of using traditional military tactics, the human force deployed high-gen bio-digital weapons against the planetary defense network. The organic components in coalition systems began failing in cascade failures that spread throughout the entire defense grid. Within hours, the supposedly impregnable fortress was defenseless. But instead of destroying the facility, human forces did something unprecedented. They captured the defense systems intact and began converting them for human use. The biodigital viruses that had disabled coalition technology were reprogrammed to strengthen and enhance the same systems under human control. The conversion process revealed the true genius of human strategy. Coalition biotechnology was superior to anything humans had developed during their brief alliance, but it was also completely dependent on biological components that could be controlled and modified. Humans were taking the best alien technology and making it better. Reports began flooding in from across Coalition space of similar system failures. Supply depot computers crashed and deleted inventory records. Warship navigation systems provided incorrect coordinates. Communication networks transmitted false information. The biodigital viruses spread through Coalition networks like a disease, turning their own technology against them. Dr. Park So-young made another crucial discovery while studying captured Coalition specimens. The 12 species had become so dependent on their biotechnology that they had lost much of their natural biological adaptability. Millennia of relying on artificial enhancements had weakened their ability to function without technological support. Humans, by contrast, retained all their natural biological flexibility because they were still relatively primitive compared to Coalition standards. This meant humans could adapt to changing conditions, while Coalition species became helpless when their technology failed. The technological gap that once favored the Coalition had become a critical weakness. Overlord Vextar of the Coalition. Supreme Council called an emergency meeting to address the growing crisis. Intelligence reports described impossible human capabilities and inexplicable system failures throughout Coalition space. The humans were supposed to be a defeated enemy, hiding in remote star systems. Instead, they seemed to be everywhere and capable of striking anywhere. Coalition analysts tried to explain how humans had acquired such advanced capabilities so quickly. The official alliance had given humans access to basic Coalition technology, but nothing that should have allowed them to develop biodigital warfare or advanced infiltration systems. The speed of human advancement violated everything the Coalition understood about technological development. The truth was that Coalition leaders had underestimated human learning ability. During the war against the Blight, humans had not simply used Coalition technology, but studied and understood it completely. Human engineers had reverse-engineered alien systems and identified their fundamental principles. Human scientists had mapped the biological components and learned how they functioned. Admiral Tae-min launched the first phase of what he called the Reclamation. Human forces began systematic capture of Coalition infrastructure across multiple star systems. These were not traditional conquests aimed at destruction, but carefully planned acquisitions designed to preserve and convert everything of value. Each captured facility was immediately subjected to biodigital conversion protocols. Coalition biotechnology was reprogrammed and enhanced using human innovations. Defense systems became stronger under human control. Manufacturing facilities produced better equipment. Research stations developed new technologies that combined the best of both civilizations. The psychological impact on Coalition forces was devastating. Their own technology was being turned against them by an enemy they had betrayed and tried to eliminate. Weapon systems refused to fire on human targets. Ships lost navigation control when approaching human positions. Communication networks carried human propaganda instead of Coalition orders. Coalition military doctrine had no answer for biodigital warfare. Their training focused on conventional battles between fleets and armies, the concept of technology itself becoming an enemy. Weapon was outside their experience. Traditional defensive measures were useless against attacks that came from within their own systems. Captain Dong Ho spearheaded the military expansion of human-controlled territory. His forces now included converted Coalition vessels operated by human crews using enhanced biotechnological systems. The ships were faster, stronger, and more capable than anything in the original Coalition fleet. Human improvements had made alien technology superior to its original design. The turning point came when human forces captured the Coalition regional capital at Centris Station. The massive facility controlled trade routes and communication networks for dozens of star systems. Its conversion to human control created a cascade effect that brought entire sectors under human influence without a single battle. Coalition species in the affected regions found their technology responding to human commands instead of their own. Supply deliveries were redirected to human bases. Military units received orders that served human objectives. Government databases were edited to show human authority over formerly Coalition territories. Vextar ordered a massive counterattack to retake Centris Station, but the operation failed before it began. Coalition ships approaching the system suffered navigation failures that left them drifting helplessly in space. Communication systems broadcast confusing orders that sent different units to wrong locations. Weapons failed to function when targeting human positions. The Coalition Supreme Council was forced to acknowledge that they faced an enemy unlike anything in their long history. Humans had not simply recovered from the betrayal, but had emerged as a technologically superior force. The species they had tried to eliminate had become the most dangerous threat the Coalition had ever encountered. Intelligence analysis revealed the full scope of human penetration into Coalition society. Agents were identified in government positions, military commands, and research facilities. Critical systems throughout Coalition space showed signs of bio-digital corruption. The humans had effectively taken control of Coalition infrastructure while leaving the appearance of normal operation. Emergency security measures were implemented, but they came too late. Human infiltration was too widespread and too deeply embedded to be removed without destroying Coalition civilization. The biodigital viruses had spread too far through their networks to be eliminated without shutting down essential systems completely. Taemin received reports from across human-controlled space showing the success of the reclamation. Territory under human authority was expanding rapidly as Coalition systems failed and were converted. The technological advantage that had once belonged to the Coalition now served human interests exclusively. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted completely. The Coalition that had once seemed invincible was collapsing under the weight of its own compromised technology. Humanity was rising to dominance, using the very systems their enemies had developed over thousands of years. The betrayers had become the betrayed, and there would be no mercy shown. 2 years after the betrayal, the Hegemony Coalition faced systematic collapse across every level of their civilization. Admiral Kang Tai-min stood in the command center of his flagship, watching real-time displays showing human forces advancing on Coalition core worlds. What had begun as a desperate struggle for survival had become the most comprehensive conquest in galactic history. The Coalition's rigid hierarchy had become their greatest weakness. Commander Yoon Jae-sung intelligence. Operations had exploited every fault line in the ancient system. Younger species that had served the elder races for centuries began questioning why they should continue fighting for leaders who had proven themselves capable of such massive betrayal. Secret communications reached human forces from Coalition, species seeking protection from the chaos consuming their civilization. The Kytherian Trade Federation was the first major Coalition member to break away. Their merchant fleets had suffered massive losses when biodigital viruses corrupted their navigation systems. Kytherians found themselves stranded in space while their own technology refused to respond to commands. When human rescue ships arrived, offering assistance, the grateful traders agreed to switch their allegiance completely. Engineer Kim Hae-jin technological revolution had reached its peak with the development of conversion protocol. This advanced system allowed complete rewriting of Coalition biotechnology for human use in a matter of hours rather than months. Captured Coalition ships' weapons and infrastructure were rapidly transformed into superior human versions that exceeded their original capabilities. The speed of conversion meant that every Coalition defeat immediately strengthened human forces. When Captain Lee Dong-ho captured a Coalition battle fleet, the ships were converted and back in action, supporting human operations within days. Coalition commanders found themselves facing their own vessels, turned against them, with human crews operating enhanced versions of familiar systems. Dr. Park So-young led the most audacious intelligence operation of the war against the Coalition's central archives on their capital world. The massive data repository contained the complete history of Coalition civilization, including records of all their previous betrayals and genocides. More importantly, it held the technical specifications for every piece of Coalition technology and the locations of strategic resource caches hidden throughout their territory. The infiltration required months of careful planning and preparation. So-young disguised herself as a Vorthak research administrator, while her team posed as maintenance workers and security personnel. The biological masking technology had become so advanced that even close genetic scans could not detect human infiltrators. Among Coalition populations, the data extracted from the central archives revealed information that changed everything. The Coalition had been systematically eliminating younger species for over 3,000 years, not just 7 times as previously believed. Dozens of civilizations had been recruited as allies, then destroyed when they became too capable. The scale of genocide was beyond anything humans had imagined. Even more valuable were the technical databases containing blueprints for coalition superweapons and defensive systems. Technologies that would have taken humans decades to develop were now available for immediate implementation. The archives also revealed the locations of secret coalition bases and hidden fleets prepared for emergency situations. Coalition Supreme Council meetings became increasingly desperate as reports arrived, showing the collapse of their outer territories. Overlord Vextar ordered the activation of emergency protocols that had never been used in Coalition history. Ancient defense systems built by the Elder races began powering up after centuries of dormancy. But even these ultimate weapons were vulnerable to human biodigital warfare. The emergency systems relied on the same biological components as all Coalition technology. When human viruses reached the ancient networks, they were converted just like everything else. Weapons designed to sterilize entire star systems became tools of human expansion instead. The psychological impact on Coalition populations was devastating. Their leaders had always claimed that Elder race technology was beyond the understanding of younger species. The sight of their most sacred and powerful systems serving human commands shattered the foundations of Coalition society. If humans could control Elder race technology, then the entire hierarchy was meaningless. Captain Dong Ho launched Operation Total Reclamation with simultaneous strikes against hundreds of Coalition worlds. The attacks were not designed to destroy, but to capture everything intact. Human forces had become experts at rapid conversion of alien facilities. Within hours of occupation, Coalition infrastructure would be serving human objectives. The military campaign succeeded beyond all expectations because Coalition resistance was ineffective. Their weapons frequently malfunctioned when targeting human forces. Communication systems provided false information about human movements. Transportation networks delivered Coalition reinforcements to wrong locations, where human forces were waiting to capture them. Coalition fleets found themselves unable to coordinate effectively because their biodigital systems had been corrupted. Ships received contradictory orders from compromised command networks. Navigation computers provided incorrect jump coordinates that scattered formations across empty space. Weapons targeting systems identified human vessels as friendly units that should not be attacked. The breakthrough came when human forces reached the Coalition capital system. Taemin led a massive fleet composed primarily of converted Coalition vessels operated with superior human modifications. The approaching armada represented the full might of human technological advancement combined with the best of Coalition engineering. The Battle of the Capital was over before it truly began. Coalition defensive systems recognized the approaching fleet as friendly because the ships had originally been Coalition vessels. When the defense networks tried to update their databases to recognize the human threat, they found their own systems had been compromised by biodigital viruses. Vextar attempted to activate the final protocol that would destroy the capital world rather than allow it to fall to human forces. The Elder race doomsday device had been hidden beneath the planetary surface for millennia as the ultimate guarantee of Coalition power. But when the activation sequence began, the ancient weapon recognized human command codes instead of Coalition authorization. The surrender came when Coalition leaders realized they had no choice. Their technology had turned against them completely. Their fleets were disabled or converted. Their populations were looking to human forces for protection from the chaos their own leaders had created. The civilization that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years collapsed in a matter of days. But Taemin victory was not simple conquest. The human strategy had always been complete replacement rather than mere domination. Coalition species would be integrated into human civilization, but the power structures that had oppressed them for millennia would be eliminated forever. The hierarchy that had enabled the betrayal would be replaced with human administration. So-Young analysis of captured data revealed that many Coalition species had been victims of the Elder races just as humanity had been. The Deltans, Kalar, and others had not simply disappeared, but had been systematically exterminated to prevent them from challenging Coalition power. Humanity would ensure that such genocides never happened again. The final phase of the conquest involved the systematic replacement of Coalition government with human administration. But this was not harsh occupation by foreign conquerors. Human officials worked with local populations to establish more just and efficient systems. Former Coalition species found that human rule was more fair and responsive than the ancient hierarchy had ever been. High-Jin engineering teams began the massive project of converting entire star systems to human specifications. Coalition biotechnology was completely replaced with human designs that were more reliable, efficient, and powerful. The technological foundation that had supported coalition civilization for thousands of years was systematically upgraded and improved. The speed and completeness of the transformation shocked even human leaders. In less than 2 years, humanity had gone from scattered refugees hiding in asteroid fields to the dominant power in known space. The coalition that had seemed invincible was now a memory preserved only in historical databases. Intelligence reports indicated that news of the coalition collapse was spreading to independent civilizations throughout the galaxy. Species that had never heard of humans were now learning about the force that had conquered their former overlords. The age of human expansion was beginning, and there would be no limits to how far it could extend. Taemin stood on the bridge of his flagship, orbiting the former coalition capital, and contemplated the magnitude of what humanity had accomplished. They had not simply won a war, but had acquired the technological and organizational foundation for galactic domination. Everything the coalition had built over thousands of years now served human purposes exclusively. 3 years after the betrayal, humanity had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. The Hegemony Coalition no longer existed as a political entity and had been completely replaced by human-administered territories stretching across thousands of star systems. Admiral Kang Taemin now held the title of Coordinator of Human Space and oversaw the most massive technological and cultural transformation ever attempted. The former coalition worlds operated under entirely new systems designed by human engineers and administrators. Dr. Park So-young had established the Institute of Galactic Adaptation, where human scientists studied and improved every aspect of coalition technology and biology. The research facilities produced constant innovations that pushed the boundaries of what had been considered possible. Former coalition species served as administrators and workers under human oversight, but they were not treated as conquered enemies. The human approach focused on integration rather than domination. Species that had been oppressed under the old hierarchy found themselves with opportunities and freedoms they had never experienced. Human administration proved to be more efficient and just than anything the coalition had provided. Engineer Kim Hye-jin led the infrastructure conversion project that was systematically replacing coalition biotechnology throughout human space. Entire solar systems were being rebuilt according to human specifications. The new systems were more powerful, more reliable, and completely under human control. What had once been coalition advantages were now exclusively human capabilities. The transformation went far beyond simple technological upgrades. Human social and political systems were being implemented across the former coalition territories. The rigid hierarchy that had oppressed younger species for millennia was replaced with merit-based advancement and equal representation. Species that had been treated as servants became full participants in the new human-led civilization. Commander Yoon Jae-sung administered the Galactic Intelligence Network that monitored every aspect of the expanding human empire. Former coalition species provided information willingly because they had discovered that cooperation with human authorities brought prosperity and security. The intelligence system was more comprehensive and effective than anything the coalition had ever achieved. Captain Lee Dong-ho commanded the new Galactic Defense Force, which included ships and personnel from dozens of species, but operated under unified human command structure. The military force existed not only to maintain order within human space, but to continue expansion toward the remaining independent systems. Human military doctrine emphasized conversion and integration rather than simple conquest. The economic transformation was equally dramatic. Human trade networks had replaced coalition commerce throughout the galaxy. The efficiency and fairness of human economic systems attracted trading partners from civilizations that had never dealt with the coalition. Prosperity flowed to regions that had been neglected or exploited under the old system. Scientific advancement accelerated at an unprecedented rate. The combination of human creativity with improved coalition technology produced innovations that neither civilization could have achieved alone. Research facilities throughout human space developed new weapons transportation systems and communication technologies that exceeded anything previously imagined. Cultural exchange between human and alien populations created new art forms, music, and literature that reflected the diversity of the expanding civilization. Former coalition species contributed their knowledge and perspectives while adopting human values of equality, cooperation, and advancement through merit rather than birth or species origin. The speed of human expansion continued to accelerate as more independent civilizations chose to join the growing empire voluntarily. Reports of human justice, efficiency, and prosperity spread throughout the galaxy. Species that had feared coalition power now sought human protection and partnership. Resistance to human expansion was minimal because the alternative was clearly inferior. Independent civilizations that observed human territories could see the benefits of integration. Former coalition species served as ambassadors, demonstrating how cooperation with humanity led to improved living conditions and greater opportunities. The few remaining coalition loyalists attempted to organize resistance from hidden bases in remote star systems. But their efforts were futile because they lacked the technological advantages that had once made the coalition powerful. Human forces easily located and captured resistance cells using intelligence networks that penetrated every corner of known space. Educational systems throughout human space taught the true history of coalition genocide and oppression. Younger generations learned how the ancient hierarchy had systematically eliminated dozens of civilizations to maintain power. The lessons ensured that such crimes would never be repeated under human leadership. Medical and biological research advanced rapidly as human scientists studied the genetics and physiology of different alien species. New treatments and enhancements were developed that improved the health and capabilities of all populations. The biological diversity of the former coalition became a strength rather than a source of division. Terraforming projects began converting unsuitable worlds into habitable environments using advanced human technology. The expansion of living space supported growing populations while creating new opportunities for settlement and development. Worlds that had been written off as worthless became valuable assets under human administration. Communication networks connected every corner of human space, allowing instant coordination of activities across vast distances. The biodigital technology that had once served coalition purposes was now optimized for human objectives. Information flowed freely throughout the empire, supporting education, commerce, and administration. Manufacturing capabilities expanded rapidly as human engineers improved production methods and created new technologies. Factories throughout human space produced goods that exceeded coalition quality while using more efficient processes. The economic advantages of human systems attracted trading partners from across the galaxy. Transportation networks connected human territories with rapid transit systems that moved people and goods between star systems in record time. The improved infrastructure supported continued expansion while maintaining contact between distant regions. Human space functioned as a unified civilization despite its enormous size. Military technology continued advancing as human engineers developed new weapons and defensive systems. The Galactic Defense Force possessed capabilities that far exceeded anything the Coalition had achieved. Potential enemies throughout the galaxy understood that challenging human power would be futile. Taymen received regular reports showing the continued expansion of human influence into unexplored regions of the galaxy. Explorer fleets carried advanced technology and human values to civilizations that had never encountered either humans or the former coalition. The age of human dominance was spreading beyond the boundaries of known space. The final meeting between Taymen and the imprisoned overlord Vextar took place in the former coalition Capitol building. The alien leader demanded to know how humanity had accomplished such complete dominance in such a short time. His species had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, but had been replaced by humans in less than 3 years. Taymen explained that the Coalition betrayal had taught humanity a crucial lesson about the nature of power in the universe they now inhabited. Trust and cooperation were luxuries that could be withdrawn at any moment by more powerful civilizations. The only real security came from being strong enough that trust was unnecessary. The Coalition had feared human potential and tried to eliminate it through betrayal, but their attack had only accelerated human development while providing the motivation for unlimited expansion. Humanity had learned to become the kind of power that did not need to worry about being betrayed because no one would be strong enough to attempt it. Vextar protested that the Coalition had maintained stability for millennia, While humanity had only brought chaos and change, Taemin pointed out that coalition stability had been built on genocide and oppression, while human expansion brought prosperity, justice, and opportunity to all species willing to cooperate. The conversation ended with Taemin's declaration that the age of coalition rule was over forever. Humanity would continue expanding throughout the galaxy, bringing human values and technology to every civilization they encountered. The universe would be remade according to human vision, and there would be no force capable of stopping that transformation. Reports arrived showing human expansion fleets launching toward the galactic rim, carrying converted coalition technology, and human administrative systems to civilizations that had never heard of either species. The process of galactic transformation was accelerating and would continue until every star system operated according to human specifications. The betrayal that was supposed to eliminate humanity had instead created the foundation for human dominance throughout known space and beyond. Everything the Coalition had built over thousands of years now served human purposes. The age of human supremacy had begun and would last for millennia to come.